In the last couple of videos on this channel, an overarching discussion point has been about the level of competition that is about to exist between AEW and WWE. And looking through many of the comments, a large portion of you agree that AEW needs to lift their game up in terms of a quality wrestling product over their major North American competitor. But it seems that it isn't just you or I that shares this sentiment, with last week's Dynamite episode proving that Tony Khan himself has realized he must step his game up as we saw a loaded show. Somewhat strange that Tony Khan was managing his booking skills the way a Formula One driver in the lead of a race manages his tires, but when you take a step back and think about it, it's not too surprising that a man with no active undisputed world champion, nor the missing piece to the puzzle of the biggest storyline he wants to tell this year, would perhaps sit back and relax to a few months of easily booked shows. The recognition from Tony Khan that WWE is now more of a threat is evident. As we mentioned in the last couple of videos, he now has something to lose, and you can see he's feeling slightly threatened already. There were so many things from last week's Dynamite that I wanted to make a video on, from the new Trios title and the impending return of Kenny Omega, to the implosion of Team Taz and the bright future of Hook, but more importantly, Ricky Starks, to the pure and beautiful artistic brilliance of Malachi Black and Miro's vignettes, story, and potential feud. And while this was not my main takeaway from the show, it's certainly what I feel is most easily discussed in a video, and that was the making of Daniel Garcia and his defeat of Bryan Danielson in the main event of AEW Dynamite, the self-proclaimed Dragon Slayer. While watching this match unfold, there was one thing I kept thinking to myself as I grinned from ear to ear, and that was how magnificently AEW were protecting Bryan Danielson. It was pretty clear to me as soon as Danielson had the head bump that Garcia was a heavy favorite to go ahead and squash the dreams of the returning American Dragon. The fans were truly invested after the head bump to a legitimate level, as Danielson's well-known head and neck injuries have kept him on the shelf before and have even threatened his career to a permanent level. AEW's willingness to blend in reality once again into the work still proving to be a viable storytelling weapon. Don't get me wrong, most people would still be invested in the match, but the twist of a genuine threat to Danielson's well-being was the perfect addition to such a pivotal match. And yes, for a moment I was concerned too. The ref allowing the match to continue was a clear indication that Danielson was okay, but you could tell by the fan reaction that most people were still questioning how fit he really was. Clearly, in this loss, Danielson is protected, but not really. At the end of the day, yeah, he got injured during the match, but what is a wrestling match if not one man attempting to injure the other to the point of pinfall or submission? Garcia was more brutal than Danielson, in the kayfabe sense, and in the mantra of Blackpool Combat Club, Garcia well and truly outdid Danielson when it came to violence. If anything, the Blackpool Combat Club should be impressed watching Garcia pull off such a big and impressive win in such a manner. Sleeping Bryan Danielson is not something many professional wrestlers can put on their resumes, and William Regal will be making note of that. Since the BCC's inception, it's been a glaringly perfect match for Daniel Garcia to join their ranks, perhaps even more so than Wheeler Yuta initially. In many regards, Daniel Garcia is a candidate as a successor to Bryan Danielson, the heir to the throne. It would make so much sense to have him learn and study Danielson for a couple of years as his disciple. But in the end, at around the same time as the inception of BCC, he joined the Jericho Appreciation Society, a faction that not only sucks the life out of a show, but is built on a premise of sports entertainers being superior to professional wrestlers. And while this may fit guys like Chris Jericho, Jake Hager, or even Sammy Guevara, it certainly does not fit a man like Daniel Garcia. Obviously, I mean in the shoot sense, Garcia is as professional wrestler as it comes, but even in the context of a work within AEW television, Garcia came into AEW boasting about his abilities as a professional wrestler. The matchup always seemed really weird to me, and yes, from the beginning I assumed this was all being done to elevate Garcia, and he would eventually realize he was indeed a proud professional wrestler, not a sports entertainer. Similar to MJF, but in a much less obvious way, it did seem to me from the very beginning that Garcia was after Jericho's head in the end. At the end of the day, what were the Blackpool Combat Club's rules when it came to recruiting? First, we bleed together, then we fight together. In the last 2 months, Daniel Garcia has faced Jon Moxley, Wheeler Yuta, and Bryan Danielson in singles matches. Nothing if not the perfect induction into the group. And maybe I was picking up on something that wasn't there, but I'm certain I picked up some uncertainty in Daniel Garcia's face and body language when Jake Hager and Chris Jericho came into the ring. He wasn't 100% accepting of that. And I know that deep down, even in his kayfabe character, there is a lot of respect from Garcia towards Danielson. The feuds between Chris Jericho and anyone related to Eddie Kingston is incredibly stale at this point. But honestly, Jon Moxley sold me on that match with his promo and what he demands from Jericho in their match. And an enticing part of this match is that potentially there could be further development in Daniel Garcia and his recruitment to Blackpool Combat Club. Maybe he'll never join William Regal's band, and at the end of the day, Regal himself on ROH commentary at Death Before Dishonor said that part of the strategy is specifically not to recruit all the best talent because Blackpool Combat Club wants to face the best competition possible. I'm mainly optimistic because of the shift that AEW took last week. Tony Khan clearly stepped his game up and I'm sure has heard the alarm bells ringing on social media and what people have been saying, that WWE is back, that under Triple H and his vision, WWE will be booked as a better professional wrestling show than AEW, that Tony Khan is out of ideas and that AEW is growing stale, repetitive, and uninteresting. I think Tony Khan relishes nothing more than to prove people wrong and to show that he's the top dog in this industry. Chris Jericho is a legend of the sport, but the JAS has been an excitement vacuum. The idea itself may have worked if not for the complete monotony that the stable has been involved in since its inception. But I was personally not a fan from the very beginning, and I guess the biggest reason for that was that Daniel Garcia ended up in that stable, when I was so convinced that he was joining Blackpool Combat Club. Garcia's potential is unmeasurable. He is part of AEW's second wave of young talents coming through the ranks, and for me, he's one of the absolute best coming through, definitely when it comes to in-ring ability. He still needs to add to the character and refine himself and probably put on a bit more size to finish himself as a complete package professional wrestler, but the kid is still just 23 years old, so he thankfully has the time and space to make those adjustments. There's nothing that needs rushing when it comes to him and his potential. Things just need to progress naturally, and I personally believe that the next step of natural progression is for him to embrace the fact that he's a world-class professional wrestler, a professional wrestler capable of defeating one of the best in the world and one of the greatest of all time. What are your thoughts on Daniel Garcia and his potential? How high do you think he can go? And what do you think his next step should be? I personally believe if he stays with the company that he will surely be an AEW World Champion one day. He will still be in his prime in 10 years, so it's hard to imagine him not capturing the top prize in the company during that time. On his way, I could see him winning the TNT title and maybe even winning the Owen Hart Classic or another tournament. Garcia and his attention to detail as well as his ring psychology should make him a great tournament wrestler. I would love to see him go to New Japan Pro Wrestling and try out the Best of Super Juniors sometime, and maybe even in a few years attempt to compete in the G1 Climax. The professional wrestling world is his oyster, so let's hope he takes it. If you did enjoy today's video, please do leave a like on it. It does so much for the algorithm and getting this video out to potentially new viewers, so very much appreciated to those that leave a like on it. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. As always, I will be down there chatting with you guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope you've had a good day. Stay stunning.